Morning, Rabbi.
Okay. Good morning, Shalom Aleichem, everybody. Great to see everyone. We are going to be learning a very special edition of the To Go series. Today is Haggadah to Go, 5 new insights into the Haggadah, and from 4 or 5 different Haggadahs. Hope I'll introduce you to some classics and some new Haggadahs that are out there. The first comes from Rav Shmuel Halevi Vosner. Rav Vosner in Haggadah Shevet Halevi was a major posek in Bnei Brak. He passed away, I think, in 2016, and he was a Holocaust survivor. He died at the age of 104, I believe, and was a student in Yeshivas Chachmei Lublin. In order to get into Yeshivas Chachmei Lublin, you had to know 250 Blad Gemara by heart. And he has a beautiful Haggadah. He's a major posek. And what's very beautiful about his Haggadah is that they share a lot of his halachos, but a lot of it also his personal practices. And I'd like to share one of his personal practices here. I find it so moving and so sensitive. One of the challenges of the Seder night very often is that, Baruch Hashem, we have a wide array of people at our Seders. You have people that this is their only connection to Yiddishkeit. You have people that are connected but don't feel comfortable to participate in such a grand scale as to what is going on at the Seder. You know, your Sedarim, sometimes everyone's switching off reading paragraphs. I can't read Hebrew. I can't read English. What do? You're up to me and you're like sweating. I can't do this. I'm more comfortable, sitting in a synagogue with a lot more people and just like blending into the crowd. But this doesn't happen here. And additionally, there's a lot of mitzvos that we do through the course of the night. And if you are a little bit, feel like an outsider, the Bala Seder needs to do their best to try to include everybody, which is a challenging task. And here he writes the following. He would eat karpas. I believe he would take a potato for karpas. It's all good. B'tzadama, you're amazing. Rabbi Tights used to have bananas, as we discussed in years past, celery, parsley, radishes. It's all good. It's all good. Now, where do you take your karpas from? So you're running the Seder, and it's your home, and you have a ka'ara in front of you. So you have like a little potato. How much could they put on that little, half a bowl? How much of a potato could they put there? So Rav Vosner didn't, break off the potato from this half a bowl that was on the ka'ara. What he would do is that everybody would pass up their spoons to him, or maybe he would pass it out himself. He would take potatoes from the kitchen. They would bring it to him, and he would use those potatoes and not use the potatoes from his ka'ara. Now you're looking at this and you'd say, oh my gosh, okay, because the ka'ara needs to stay pristine. The ka'ara, we can't move anything off the ka'ara. We should take things only from outside of the ka'ara. But his students explained that that's not what was going on over here. You see, he had a lot of children, grandchildren, and Baruch Hashem, toward the end of his life, a lot of great-grandchildren. And there wasn't enough of a potato on the ka'ara to give everybody from the ka'ara. And invariably what would happen was that some of the kids, some of the family would get from the ka'ara and others wouldn't. And there very likely would be, some kids would say, hey, Saba, Grandpa, Zaidi loves me more than him, because look what I got from, and look what he got from. In order to avoid such a sensitive point, to avoid any concern that anybody is being favored over here, he brought them all from the kitchen. They would say, I got from the ka'ara and you didn't. I am better. Oh, no. We have to be ultra careful and sensitive at the Seder. Everybody wants to share. Everybody wants to participate to a certain. We need to make sure that people feel included to the degree that they can, especially those that feel disconnected and children. Those are the two categories that really need super sensitivity. One woman shared with me on Shabbos that she knows that a lot of people can't read Hebrew at her Seder. They try to read the Haggadah in Hebrew, but what she does is on purpose. At a certain point in Haggadah, she brings a French, Arabic, Spanish, and Hebrew English Haggadah to the Seder. And she says, okay, now we're going to switch off. We're going to read these paragraphs now in other languages. Why does she do that? So sensitive. She does that because she knows that half the people there can't read Hebrew. And if she's going to read the entire Seder in Hebrew, people are going to feel disconnected. So the expert who went to yeshiva his whole life is going to purposely read the paragraph in French and break their teeth over it. This way, everybody feels like a little bit like a novice to a certain degree, and we all are to a certain degree. We all don't know everything, and it really is. I thought it was an unbelievable sensitivity point from the those, not extended to the amazing women in our community. That's the first idea. Just a thought about sensitivity and everybody at the Seder. Along those lines, I saw a beautiful thought in the name of Rav Schwab. Throughout the Seder, we use a name of Hashem, which is not very commonly used, and that is Baruch Hamakom Baruch Hu. We call God Hamakom. Kama Malos Tovos Lamakom Aleinu. The intro pasuk to Dayenu refers to God as Makom, and right before the Daled Banim, we also refer to God as Makom. Why is that the name used? So most notably, when do we use the name Makom? Most prominently, when is that? At a Beis Avel. At a Beis Avel, we say Hamakom Yenachem Eschem B'Soch Shav Yisrael B'Shleim. Hamakom. Why do we use it there? Makom is generally used when there is a distance between us and God. When the distance is either real, palpable, or there needs to feel a distance between us and Hashem. So where do we see that from? When Avraham was bringing Yitzchak to the Akedah, Avraham, the Torah says, Vayar es hamakom meirachok. He saw the place from far. And the rabbis learn out from there that Makom, God's name, is a name in reference to God when we don't see him, we don't feel him, and he's distant to us. So why is he Makom at the Seder? So Rav Schwab says something, I think, very beautiful. And this within itself is a great question. I like questions. Questions, you like my answer, you don't like the answer that Rav Schwab, okay, that's fine. But really, the great part of a Seder is to engender real conversation. Why do we need Makom here? It could be we need Makom here because you can imagine someone in your Seder saying, because the Jewish people in Egypt didn't see God. Right? Very simply, they didn't see God. We don't call him Makom after the meal and Hallel because at that point they could see God when they left Egypt. But now when we're in the slavery mode, we call God Makom. You can, and this is a great question because you can have multiple layers of answers to this question. Rav Schwab says that it directly connects to the next paragraph. Baruch HaMakom Baruch Hu, Baruch Shanas Torah L'Amo Yisrael, and then we say Kineged Arba Banim Dibrato. So often, right, we not only is Hashem at a distance from us, but we get disappointed in God when we see our children are distant themselves, or when our children are so different from one another, or they're not engaged as much in the Seder or in Jewish life and practice, that it's very, instinctive that people take that out on the Ribono Shel Olam. Why is this my challenge? Why do I have this challenge? I'm such a good person. I don't ever do anything wrong. You don't complain. And this is how you made my kids. So Baruch HaMakom Baruch Hu, we thank Hashem, for making our children the way that they are. And it's our job to cultivate them and to take the neshamos and develop them to the best of our ability. And obviously we have to give it to them and they have to do it on their own at a certain point, but embracing those challenges that we have with our children at points, and to recognize that and to own it. We say later in the Seder, Ves Amalenu. What's the hard work, the difficulty the Jewish people experienced in Mitzrayim? Elu Habanim. That refers to the children. Raising kids, raising grandchildren is something that is not easy. It is not easy. What's fascinating in the Haggadah called the Chinuch Haggadah by Rabbi Yaakov Bender, Rosh Hashiva in Far Rockaway, says something very, very beautiful. We say, Echad Chacham, Echad Rasha, Echad Tam, Ve'echad She'eni Yodeh Lisho. Why do we need to say Echad this, Echad this? First of all, it's Echad She'eni Shlishi Revi. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not 1, 1, 1, 1, but even 1, 1, 1, 1 is very verbose. It's unnecessary. I think we can count to 4. Why do we need to do this? So he says something very, very simple. He says, because each child is a yachid. Each child is unique on their own. And that's the way we need to look at them. We cannot compare our children one to the other. That is the worst thing that a parent can do. Well, Shendel can pull it off. What about you? Come on. Shendel saying the Manishtan at 3 years old, and you're pushing 5. You can't do it? Huh. Even an off-base comment like that can really, undermine months and years of chinuch. 3 to 5, high school, even when kids are adults, it really matters a tremendous amount. We need to embrace our children and really recognize
for other things, more important things, more serious.
At any age.
Yes, of any age, 100% true. Yes, any age. Any age. And he says here, he quotes Rav Shlomo Freifeld, who says something very, very beautiful. The great Vort. Harofe l'shvurei leiv u'mechabesh latzivosam. We say every single morning. God is the one that heals the brokenhearted and binds their sorrows. Monem mispar l'kochavim l'chulam shemos yikra. God counts them like the stars and calls each one of them by a name. And he says, what's the connection between these two psukim? The first pasuk says that God takes care of those that are downtrodden. The second pasuk says he counts the stars too, and he calls them by name. And he says that very often we focus on we give more time to those that require more of our time. The challenges, the ones that misbehave, or we get more phone calls from back at home. But unfortunately, who gets lost in the wayside? The children that are bright, that are just good kids, that just behave. They do what's told of them. They do their homework on time. They don't get the attention that the kids that misbehave get in school. The kids that misbehave also, they don't mean it. So he says that Freifeld says so beautifully that Hashem counts everybody. He takes care of those that are weaker, right? Harofed l'shvurei leiv, and he counts the stars. He doesn't forget about those stars. Rabbi Bender writes, he's a Rosh Hashiva, that a few years ago, a boy came to him and said that he felt shortchanged in his chinuch. He said the troublemakers, the ones who challenged the Rebbe, they end up benefiting because the Rebbe wants to win them over. He makes deals with them, contests, they get prizes, they spend more time with him. If they perform well, everybody celebrates their hard work. But me, I'm a good kid. When I do well, no one looks at me. No one notices because they expect that. So I end up losing out. You know what Rabbi Bender said to him? You're right. I'm sorry. We have to do a better job of taking care of all of our kids, right? Echad Rasha, Echad Chacham, Echad Tam, Ve'echad She'enu Delishol. Each and every one of them on their own is significant, and they need to know that from us. If the first time you're telling your children you love them, no matter what, is when you have your first health scare, that is not good. You shouldn't do it then, but it should be heard much, much earlier in your life.
Rabbi,
Number 3, yes, Mendy.
So if you have the number 1, 2, 3, 4,
Yeah.
and you add one chart, the second chart, 34, add up those 4 numbers. What number do you get? 4, 3, 2, 1 is number 10. You need 10 people for a million. So everybody counts.
Everybody counts. Okay, Mendy, that's putting your safer. You have like a lot of Chidushei Torah at this point. Okay, number 4. Yeah,
Rabbi.
Shiur.
So just going back to the 4 sons, and you're saying how each one, like Rabbi Bender said, that everyone counts and all that, goes back to what you said about your guests at your Seder, or they could be family, not dafka, not family guests,
Yeah.
and make everyone feel comfortable. It's like if the Kadosh Baruch Hu can do it, then we need to use him as our dugma, and we need to do the individualized, care for each guest.
Yeah. Do our best. We have to do our best. We're not perfect. Again, we have a lot on our plates before Pesach, but we have to do our best. One year, what I did was, this was a lot of fun. We got place cards, and we, in advance, asked everybody to send in a picture. We printed them all out, and we put them on a place card, on the place card holder, and we made like a scene depicting Kriyas Yamsuf at the Seder. And it was like everybody was leaving Egypt. So everybody like felt very comfortable because they were already there, except for the person that we probably forgot their picture. And then we have to give them an extra Afikoman prize. Who knows? You're going to forget something. It's also going to happen. We have to own that too. It's not going to be perfect. Number 4, right? We should give a prize to the kid or the adult that spills the first cup of wine on their neighbor's dress. They should get a prize, right? Embrace that. Number 4. This is a great ha'ara. It's a very short idea, but a great thought from Rabbi Reisman. While I'm sharing these, it's important to note that the Divrei Torah that we're sharing don't all have to be said at the Seder. We have a lot of meals over the course of Yantiv, and it's not usher to share a Dvar Torah that's meant for the Haggadah at a different meal over the course of Yantiv. That's not an Isser of Nosar. It's not an Isser of Pigul. It's also allowed and very much encouraged. I usually get my kids' Haggadahs that they bring in. We spend time usually at the lunches to say those Divrei Torah. They don't get to say everything, and that's like a great time to give them more time to say those Divrei Torah. One thing that we use at the Seder, the Gemara says we do a lot of things to engage the kids, and the Gemara writes that what should you give kids as a prize? Kloyos ve'egozim, roasted grain and nuts. Don't try this today, right? It's not going to work. Marshmallows might be better there, chocolate chips. But what's fascinating is where Reisman points out that on Rosh Hashanah, we dafka avoid nuts. We avoid egozim. We avoid nuts. And tonight we say, bring them to the table. We're not afraid of nuts. Egozim is gematria chet. Mendy will have another gematria for me in a moment. Give them a second to think about it. Now, why on Rosh Hashanah we don't, and now we embrace them and pass them out as prizes to the children. So he says something very, very beautiful, that on Rosh Hashanah, there's a certain level of pachad that we feel. It's very healthy, a healthy fear, anxiety, reverence for Hashem that really limits the amount of simcha that we could celebrate. And that's real. We don't say Hallel on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. There's a limitation to the simcha. There's simcha on the day, but it's not full blown. On Pesach, there's a certain level of confidence that we need to come to the Seder with. There's a certain level of like bravado. The way that we say it is we're like kings. The reason why we lean at the Seder is that we have to behave like, again, it's like what they did in the Roman times during the Second Temple. Nonetheless, we are behaving and acting like kings. One of the reasons why we wear a kittel at the Seder is for that reason. Others say that you should, the Maharil writes, that you should bring any types of silver or gold, to your Seder table to show like the Rechush Gadol that we received. I think it's Rav Kook that writes that the reason why we dip twice at the Seder, and we're actually dipping in a manner that halachically would really be inappropriate. we're gonna make a bracha on matzah, like bread, later on, and we're making a bracha before the bread. Usually we would say that we should avoid that issue and make the bracha on the bread, and then you make one less bracha. We like to avoid making brachas to the best of our ability. But here we break protocol and we go ahead and do this. Why? Because kings break protocol. They can do whatever they want. They write the books, right? They make the laws. So in a certain sense, the presence of Egozim, the embracing of the nuns, is supposed to express our confidence in how we come to the Seder. And this is such a special idea, as we are, what's going on in the world is can for some people feel very scared, and with anti-Semitism. The Seder itself should be a chizuk to us and our Jewish identity. Right? And who's here after it's all said and done? It's us. We are here. We are still here. So we push the nuts into the middle of the table and say, we're not afraid tonight. We're not afraid. The night is called, in the Torah, it's not called Leil HaSeder. Leil HaSeder actually is a much later term. First time the words Leil HaSeder come up is Rav Avram Gaon. We call it Leil Shimurim in the Torah. It's Leil Shimurim. It's a halachic concept that you don't need to say certain tefillos that you would say before you go to bed, because you don't need that protective element. We open the door, according to a very simple reason, is that we're not afraid. We're not afraid. We want to stand up to our enemies. We'll elaborate even more on that idea at the Shabbos Gadol Drasha Bezrat Hashem on Shabbos. That is number 4 for today. Number 5, first of all, for this morning, we began with Rav Wosner and Karpas, sensitivity, amazing sensitivity of Rav Wosner. We continue with Baruch HaMakom Baruch Hu, distance, challenges with children, Echad, 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 the belief in each child, the nuts, and now the very important halachic question is asked by many, many poskim, is that one of the mitzvot of Seder night is a mitzvah called Sipor Yetzias Mitzrayim. Every day of the year, every night of the year, we have a mitzvah called Zechiras Yetzias Mitzrayim. We have to remember the Exodus. And at the Seder, we have a new mitzvah called Sipor. What's the difference between those two? So there's Rav Chaim Soloveitchik, the Rav Chaim Abris, really suggested there's a bunch of different differences between the two. Most notably, you have to have matzah and maror to tell the story at Leil HaSeder. You don't have to bring matzah and maror every single night of the year. There's a certain method in which to tell the story. The story needs to be told derech she'ela u'tshuva, question and answer. Number 3, it needs to be done in a certain way where you tell the bad stuff, then you say the good stuff. At every other night of the year, we say the third paragraph of Shema, and that's it. They just mention it. Here it needs to be a story. So many Rishonim and Achronim ask, why is there no bracha on Sipor Yetzias Mitzrayim? Why is there no bracha on this mitzvah from the Torah? The mitzvah of maror, mitzvah of matzah. Please God, we're going to have the Korban Pesach very soon. We'll get brachos. The Rambam has the bracha, what bracha you're going to make on eating the Korban Pesach. Now, why would Sipor Yetzias Mitzrayim not get a bracha? There's many different answers to this question, and every answer tells a story about Leil HaSeder. Tells you something different about the Seder. The most classic answer is given by many of the Rishonim, and that is that you don't make a bracha on something that is not confined. When there's no limit to a mitzvah, you don't make a bracha on it. For example, some say you don't make a bracha on tzedakah. Why don't you make a bracha on tzedakah? Because there's no limit to how much tzedakah you can give. That could be definitely debated to a certain degree, but at the Leil HaSeder, there's no cap. Kol hamarba l'saper b'yetzias Mitzrayim, harei zeh meshubach. The more you say, the better. So since it's not confined, When it comes to matzah, I don't think we say called ochel matzah. I don't think it's meshubach. You just ask your stomach. And so that is one approach to this answer. Secondly, some say that you can't make a bracha over speech. You make a bracha on a maisa, on an action. Maror, matzah, shaking a lulav. Those are even blowing the shofar. But talking, the mitzvah is Haggadah, to talk does not get a bracha. Does not get a bracha on its own. Some say it might be Kiddush is really the bracha itself. And I'll share with you one additional answer. And that actually two more answers. One is the Chasim Sofer. Chasim Sofer, the answer number 3, says that you can't make a bracha. You know why? We're not Jewish yet. What does that mean? Part of the process of when did the Jewish people become Jewish? So you're going to say Avram's the first Jew. Yeah, Avram Avery, but formally, not really. The whole, it really finished that moment of Jewishness at Matan Torah. It began now. It began with Bris Milah, and that's when the process began. The Gemara writes that a ger cannot make a bracha on them going to the mikvah. Why can't they make a bracha when they go into the mikvah to become Jewish? The Gavra Lo Chazi, they're not yet Jewish. So they can't make a bracha when they're not Jewish. When do they make the bracha? This is like the same as the next answer I was going to say. They say, Chasan Sofer says, the bracha at the end of Magid, Asher Ge'alanu, is the bracha that retroactively goes back on Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim, because it's at that moment when Hashem made us his people, Hashem made us his children, that we have like a little bit of the Gerus already began. Formally, it didn't really end until Matan Torah, but nonetheless, it began then. So we're like, really shows the process of Magid. That Magid, we're supposed to take ourselves through this journey of being a slave in Egypt, going through the very difficult and dark moments in Mitzrayim, and ultimately coming out of it as, B'nai Yisrael, Okay, so that is, how can you make a bracha on something retroactively? I'll give you one proof that you could do this. Take it or leave it. We don't make a shachiyanu the second night on Shiur Omer. Why not? So some say, why not? We don't have a Beis Hamikdash, you don't do it. Others say, you know what? You know why not? Because we're afraid you're not going to finish the mitzvah. Others say, I think it's the Balmor or the Meiri, that you do make a shachiyanu. You know when? On Shavuos. On Shavuos, if you made it all 49 days and you made the bracha every single day, when do you make the shachiyanu? The first night of Shavuos, you make a shachiyanu. It's not only for the holiday of Shavuos, it's retroactive on everything before that. So he says, the Chasim Sofer writes, that the bracha of Asher Galanu is a bracha retroactively on the entire Seder. That's a beautiful idea. But it's not about, the answer is very technical. But what it shows you is the tahalich of the Seder itself. And what's amazing is that I just saw this morning in the Hagyonei Halacha Haggadah. He said something very, very beautiful. He says that if we look at matzah is first called lechem oni in the beginning, and at the end, it's bread of freedom. Rabbi Gamliel Haya Omer, they had matzah when they left Egypt. Matzah transforms from a matzah of slavery to a matzah of salvation. That really is indicative, representative of our process that we need to go through throughout the Seder. So just to review for today, 5 thoughts for Haggadah. We'll do a little bit more Haggadah, Divrei Torah, Pesach, Bezrat Hashem. Maybe we'll do some halachos, Erev Shilin, different things that need to come up on Tuesday. But right now, we had Rav Vosner about the sensitivity about Karpas, Baruch HaMakom Baruch Hu, the Daled Banim, Echad Chacham, Echad Rasha, the beautiful thought of Rav Freifeld, the belief in each child, nuts, why no nuts at the Seder? I never saw that idea before. Number 4, Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim, and 3, that was number 5. And no bracha on Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. many different answers to that amazing question. If you are in Fair Lawn, or you're not in Fair Lawn and you want to come for a Shabbos Agadol dress, we'll put you up. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll be discussing stealing the Afikomen. Fascinating discussion. We'll be giving the shiur twice for women right after davening who can't make it later in the day. And again, at 5:45 for the Sibor. Wish everybody a wonderful Shabbos.
Rabbi,
And a
quick question.
Yes.
Rabbi,